Godverse development. It has, you know, scope creep. It real. We, but I think it's coming together really nicely. I feel pretty good about it. Here, let me screen share. Actually, I can show some of this stuff.
Great
I'll
idea.
hand off. I'm gonna quickly closing my most embarrassing tabs, and all right. Hi. Can y'all see my screen? I'll make it whiter. Make it wider, and I'll hide my console. And then where should we start out? Okay. So I think here's what we'll run through today, and Snuts and GPU, feel free to correct me. We will show this screen that I'm showing right now, which is sort of this cult binding interface, which is sort of how you start the game. And then there's Gawdtchi, which you take care of your god, and you keep it sated, and that will ensure a blessed yield. Love that copy, by the way. It's not really high quality jokes right there.
We
And
must pray.
we I cower. And um, and then the third piece of it is sort of how these rewards are distributed. In terms of sort of this rebase process, which if any of y'all are familiar with the casino game that is Olympus DAO and its many forks, we've kind of riffed some of the mechanics from there in terms of sort of like the 8-hour rebase period. But what we're layering in are uh, kind of this boost system, and some folks have had some great ideas at the last Temple Time we did around like what kinds of things could be used as boosts. And you can kind of see like in this mock-up here, I've got this your yield boost number here. This is all sort of like major TK, uh, but kind of hacking through it, where there's sort of this cult bonus concept. There is an idea we're working on where essentially the powers would rotate um, randomly or semi-randomly. And then, so for instance, like on any given day, your yields might change based on sort of what the favored power is that day or what the favored cult is that day. And as well as things we could potentially add in the future, like um, I think it was Dub Pasty threw out this idea of like a cult being able to like buy a boost for the entire cult that boosts them for, let's say, for like 48 hours, and that provides like a yield boost. You could buy individual items. And then an idea I wanted to throw out to the hive mind, the god hive mind we have assembled, is basically bridging with other NFT projects and like making it so that if you own other NFTs, that could provide energy yield boosts as well. And I'm really into that because I love working with other NFT projects, but I also feel like it adds kind of an element of dynamism to it. So over the last couple of weeks, we've finished the vast majority of the smart contract work, which is all behind the scenes. I loaded up, here's a bunch of unsyntax highlighted Solidity if you're so inclined in the GitHub web editor. But the important part is now we're kind of building out the user interface to make it all really slick and fun. And we've got our cool wheel of powers. I'm bound to Terrain, obviously. I broke this unbind interface, but you can unbind. When you're coming in, you can bind and select a cult. And one mechanic that we're playing with, I think I figured out how to do it, is we've always wanted the cults to be more balanced when we're playing the game. Like, I don't think it would be very fun if, obviously Terrain is going to dominate, but I don't think it'd be very fun for y'all Arcanes and Astrals out there if Terrain is just steamrolling the game. So one kind of mechanic, you see this 100% rewards. The idea is that basically like if the cult's populations or the relative congregations are out of sync, there would be a bonus for joining a cult. And that could be one of two things or both. That could be either a one-time energy grant when you first bind, but it could also be a perpetual yield bonus given to that cult. So uh, the idea being that, like if uh, Astral, uh, God bless their hearts, just so nice and well intentioned. are have like 1/4 as many gods as everybody else, they would get, for instance, like a 4x boost on their earnings. And we'll play with those numbers. I don't think it should necessarily be 4x, but something basically just to try to help level the playing field and incentivize new folks who are coming in to sort of join less popular cults, if that makes sense.
The goal, like you said, is to have an even amount on all because in the future, I think it would be helpful for some of the ideas we're having.
Yeah. I'll stop here in case any questions, and then I'll show off sort of the Gawdtchi production, like the latest version of it. Unless GPU, you wanted to show off the better one. Sweet. Okay. I'm not paying attention to the side chat. We got any questions?
Oh, I'll take a look.
Uh, uh, allow. Y'all always have the best comments, by the way. I really appreciate all the fun ideas and like extensions, and then just riffing on all this stuff because, like, we have ideas for what we want to do, and we're sort of taking it in this direction. But and a lot of what we're trying to do right now is sort of to like get the basics in place so that we can all kind of work from there. And importantly, one of those core primitives is this energy production game, which rewards God holders for being God holders, produces all this energy. And then we have a couple of kind of simple ideas for what to do with the energy, or sort of showing just stats, basically, which I think Snuts will go into. But I'm very curious to build bridges with other projects, like this idea that I mentioned of working with other NFT um, projects. It's like, you know, I'm just gonna set up a store. I will sell you NFTs for energy. Like that's who I am. I hoard energy. I just can't get enough of it. And so I
We
don't know what to do there, but there is a lot of crossover potential when we have this token in place.
Yeah. So far on side chat, the most exciting thing to probably talk about, mentioned by Quill, um, an Astral, I forgive you. Um, he mentions the idea of being able to sacrifice NFTs that
Oh
basically
yes.
go to our communal wallet
Oh.
and could be used as a cache of NFTs to vote and sell or win later on,
Oh
which
my
is
God. I love that
fascinating
idea.
idea.
Yeah. Interesting. I wonder how you can get the value of an NFT on chain. But let's put a pin in
Maybe it
that
doesn't
one and
matter.
come back to
Maybe
it.
it just goes into a winner's pool thing.
Yeah. Floor price isn't actually technically on chain, although it might be on chain somewhere.
Yeah.
We'll figure that out. Otherwise, we can just punch it in. But we can just. I mean, it's funny because I've actually spent a lot of time writing code to make everything like properly on chain, like and fully on chain. But honestly, like it slows down development, and so I've pulled back. And for instance, like a lot of these variables that you can see in the game here, like the base earnings per god. Um, there's a few others you can't see, like even the length of a rebase period, which we have set to 8 hours, like uh like like the good Omi should. These are just basically variables inside of a contract now, and um, we have a proposal that I wrote up around basically around establishing governance for the game. And so essentially the idea there is to allow, I wish I had like an example of it, but like gods holders can vote on the variables for the game. So for instance, how long is a rebase period? What is the base earnings per god? What is the equivalent of sort of the rebase index, which is sort of like the amount of inflation or the amount of rewards per god, or these various boost configurations. And I have a couple ideas for trying to make it more fun. Like I've also been reading Three Body Problems, so I'm really into this idea of like chaotic days and stable days. And like on chaotic days, it's like just kidding. Everybody gets negative 50%. like,
That's
like,
awesome.
rip your
Yeah.
earnings. But but most of the days are like stable days, and it's sort of like a predictable amount of chaos going into it. And we could kind of do this like instead of me trying to come up with this like crazy algorithm that does 100% of this on chain, we can basically just have like a transaction that we fire every morning that updates the game variables for the day based on the community's voting on the governance of the game. And uh, thus we have created a metagame. But
Yeah. My inclination is to have this not be very malleable but that's the metagame is actually very fascinating too.
Yeah. I mean, you know I'm gonna be voting for Tureen Cult Boost every day.
Whoop, whoop.
So yeah, you can see here. Here's the health of my gods. They're all doing pretty good because I just reset the contract. It's a great way to fix all your dead gods. Um, and you can see my energy balance. I'm not doing so great because I just reset the contracts. But I feel like am I missing anything as far as sort of this basic sort of like energy production, the various mechanics we're pulling on for this one? You can see
The
this.
energy goes straight to your wallet, not a shared cult wallet, correct?
The energy goes to your own wallet, and then this might be a good opportunity actually to hand it off to you to show the cult stuff because it does in aggregate also count towards your cult.
Sure.
All glory to cult. I stopped streaming.
Um, just a quick overview of other things that are due on this sanctuary page that Jamie was just on. Um, Sorry, I get lots of sounds. There will be some sorting. Um, Again, like this is how you bind your cults. You select one, you dedicate yourself. It becomes a transaction.
Oh, there's a
Um,
lockup associated with the cults, by the way. I don't know if I mentioned that.
what's
Uh,
that?
there's a lockup. I think I set it to about a week as the
Oh,
initial
so
lockup.
once you're bound, you are bound for at least a week.
Yeah, and you can't unbind until the lockup is over.
That's great. I think that's very good. Um, so once you're bound, we'll have a countdown timer, how much you're intended to earn. Here, we're kind of showing which power is boosting today. We have today is Mystic. And I've signed all powers this kind of ASCII code, which will be a lot of fun to surface in different ways in our pages. Eventually, we'll have filters to be able to sort your gods by those things. But I just want to show that off real quick. We will also have basically a leaderboard. Right now, it's just called the cults page, but we'll have, the three cults. The one you joined, which will be highlighted in red. Of course, I highlight Arcane. Um,
Where's cult?
Pretty good. Um, but just show top earners per each of the cults, how much they earn, how many gods they have. Um, and you can kind of get an overview of like which cults are leading at different points in time. I'm having so many sounds happening
I know. I
from
I have to mute it actually. Next time we'll use stages, which gets rid of that problem. But
it does? Gosh, why didn't I do that?
yeah, I think maybe
I
I have to turn it on or something.
I think I just turned off the fender. And then overall leaderboards of who it is. Obviously, these are designed, so you know, just using dummy copy. But just a good way, like I think early on will be very fun to see like who's producing and for which team. And it'll lend us to the future game mechanics, which I could tease, or we could just switch back to seeing how Gawdtchi's going.
I
Let's
I say show some games, and then we can show Gotchi V2 as
so
far
the
as
idea, and this is after we're feeling really steady and solid with energy production, that like we feel like we're obtaining it. We feel like the process of doing it is relatively stable, if not like a fun kind of chaos. That we will have games, and I'm iterating through game concepts. So they're rough, but um, the idea is my favorite so far. Um, it might not even have, any navigation. It would just be its own standalone page. And I don't know if you've played Dark Forest, um, but there's this part in Dark Forest where you have a planet. It's a crypto game that everyone should give a try. If you want a key, I always get keys, so hit me up and I'll get you a key so you can try out the game because it's ridiculously fun and programmable. But like, there's this part where you're protecting a planet. So let's pretend this is a planet. It's trisected into our three cults: Astral, Arcane, and Terrene. And there's a point of impact. There's these red, I'm just calling them bad vibes, coming into the planet, and everyone who has staked gods or energy has the choice to set them up somewhere on the outside. That's what all these little white dots are.
Oh my god, so we're doing guard the planet?
So they guard the planet, but
Oh.
you wanna probably guard your side. Um, so you clump up your pyramids together to block the vibes from going in, and they will have their own, like, energy signatures. So, to, like, power against you,
Mhm.
and then so you'll be able to place anywhere on this, circular wheel your gods. So let's say these couple are yours, and you're guarding arcane. But I also wanna have curses and team boosts so that you can add extra force fields, shields, um, and other things to keep that from here. And I'm imagining that the bad vibes, these negative points gradually coming into here when they hit, and if they get past your gods, reduce the energy that your team is able to have.
Mhm.
And the winner, so just by you sticking your gods into this arcane, increases its holdings. Um, and then this can decrease those holdings. And then the winner at the very end wins such things such as like an NFT at the end, or
Mhm.
ETH, or the whole bounty of all the energy, assuming energy starts to accrue some sort of value.
Mhm.
These boosts,
Or a nice pat on the head.
or just, good vibes,
Yeah.
which is also actually kind of great.
Discord
Um,
brawl.
but what I like about this, there's some collaboration and there's some competitiveness, all with like kind of a timeline to deliver this. And the
Mhm.
ways I could design this interface are pretty fun.
Oh my
Um,
god, we can make it 3. I mean, I don't wanna go over I'm king of scope creep over here, but, GPU's 3D world work would just work so well with this one.
there's no reason why this couldn't be distributed. Yeah, I would like it to be hard to really guess the trajectory easily, and maybe
Mhm.
even those, these entities that are coming in have zigzags or some sort of chaotic, you know, trajectory,
Mhm.
and to position your gods was not obvious, and you might need a reposition, which costs extra energy. So, I like the idea of having, like, something a bunch of people can do, and then having, like, ways to ruin it, like redistribute the like, the trajectories of the things, or, like, magnet gods altogether with, like, a little area effect spell.
Mhm.
Um, just just ideas I'm thinking about, but, stuff that I think once we get solid with, energy production and holding, that we might wanna get into, hiring people to help us, complete.
I
Boop.
love it. I love that it's called game too on the top. Great game.
Well, that's my work in progress title.
Yeah. That's cool. And then I think we've discussed some of the other energy sync ideas here too. I don't have any visuals as far as them, but some of the simple ones that we've talked about in the past, like the homepage ad, or I think it was Dubpace or DRC who suggested the um, being able to kind of buy titles for your gods or even buy titles for other gods. So we're sort of thinking about both lightweight, r- sort of faster to build, like cosmetic and aesthetic energy sinks, as well as more robust ones like multiplayer asteroids over here. And the Trool. I'm still noodling on the Trool. Don't don't ask me for an update, but someone's gonna get trooled.
Okay, Casey, you wanna go through a little of the Gawdtchi iteration you were going through?
A third screen appears.
Okay. Um, so I think everyone has seen Tamagotchi um iteration, but to be honest, like let's have like test um time to see if it's actually. So I spent some time kind of recreating what the smart contract is doing, just our web code and React. And so everything here is not operating on the contract, and it's allowed me to kind of spend a lot more time on. I think where we've netted out is that, and we still have to like make these changes in our contract. I've made all these, but everything you're seeing here is kind of simulating at an extremely fast pace how hypothetically works, which is just keeping your God happy, and it kind of works away from Tamagotchi and kind of enters uh, Diablo territory where each action is more like a power that you have, and when you use it, um, it has a cooldown where you can use it again. So I can't actually do the health. There's just like rather than having like 4 statuses, God, these are just now like I'm gonna pray to God to make it happier, marvel at it. We now have these new ghost notifications that pop up. Go look at the Polygon transaction. These are fake, actually, but the idea is that each one has different variables, different cooldown times, and sacrifices the. This will like fill your bar all the way up, but it takes like a very long time for it to actually cool down. So I think there'll be some interesting things around how when people decide to sacrifice versus pray versus marvel, depending on downs of each of these. They're like all values that we want to play around with. Uh, and ideally add some randomness to it, or maybe not randomness, but kind of what Jamie was talking about, having certain moments. I forget the term you use.
Oh, chaotic days.
Chaotic days. Yes.
Yeah.
Where maybe these things are affected different, or maybe a certain cult, certain dominant power is affected that day, which would give them that day. But the overall, like it feels going this direction, like kind of more powers, actions, sounds. It feels much simpler. Whereas the Tamagotchi version, uh, you can never get the health to sense, and kind of satisfying and unclear, like especially since it's all on chain and or L2. Um, it's hard to see like what did that actually do, and I think this will. So I don't think we want people in here all day. Just come in. Got the whole point is just really make sure your health bar is up, and for their own any gods, like I don't think spend too much, make them waste time. Happy. So, but I could also picture us again on those like chaotic days or special days where certain dominant powers highlighted some way. Maybe we can make your go to like 10% or something
Ooh.
higher.
Ooh. Turn it up to 11.
Yep.
One thing you also discussed, Casey, was uh, spamming certain, like, yes, you could keep praying because it or worshiping because it depletes faster. But if you did it like 3, 4 times in a row, it might start affecting the others, like increase your cooldown periods for the others. So
Right.
I like the idea of being like keeping people on their toes from spamming things.
Yeah.
I mean, I love this too. Like, even to your point, even if it's not something that, because like the time frame, you've accelerated this like 100x in terms of the time frame. Like, your meter won't deplete this quickly in the real world for everybody who's stressing out, like Base and the big holders in here who are like, oh my God, how am I gonna take care of
Yeah. This is like a
100
10
gods? But
10 minute I think 5 or 10
Yeah,
minutes till death, but in reality it'll be.
yeah. And then this does make me want to like make some other derivatives where it is more real time, and maybe that's like more like what Snuts was showing off with the asteroids game or something else, or like even like the merge game or the battle game ideas that we've tossed around, where it's like maybe you do have to kind of button mash in order to cast spells against the other person. And I think we could reuse a lot of the work here potentially. Like I could imagine, like if you scroll down, like the radar chart of powers, like this powers could be just buttons too, where you're casting like your numerary spell or something, whatever that is, or you cast your toxic spell against your enemy, and then there's a cooldown associated with the power rather than associated with the Gawdtchi property.
Totally. Yeah, that'd be.
Numeray just sends math.
Just sends man sends calculus problems at people. Be like,
No,
good luck to you.
here's a math.
Toxic just sends you Britney Spears music.
Now that's in my head.
I also want to add some sound effects for every time something completes. It has StarCraft.
So you're Protoss? Is that sounds Protossy?
Yeah, that was.
All right, all right. Oh yeah, and then if you can't, what is it? You must construct additional cower.
Yep, man, we're nerds. Such
Oh,
nerds.
hope please enjoy. It's just
That's it. I mean, that's all there's to it. It's just kind of Tamagotchi smart contract, and now we kind of have to work with Jamie. Wrap it up.
yeah, it's funny because I mean, the smart contract stuff is, it's complicated, but honestly, like making things fun, I think, is the hardest part of this, and making them make sense together too,
Yep.
Right.
which is
Yeah.
so funny. So anyway,
We're taking what was a very simple contract with some logic behind it and making a bunch of interface interactions, try to make it feel fun and something you would want to play. And it's pretty and to have that feed into like producing the energy. We just want to limit the barriers, but still make it at least a little bit interesting to play.
hmm
Um, so just a like reminder, the whole reason the Gawdtchi stuff exists now is to, make sure your god will produce energy on the worship or on your sanctuary page, on your listing page. So making sure it's happy, that means in the next 8 hours or when the rebase happens, that god will produce that energy. So you just want to be sure every 8 hours, the maximum amount of gods are pleased, sated, so that your energy goes up. Um, the whole purpose of this is we want to reduce it feeling like essential to like maximize it and just make sure that you can get them happy within that 8 hour period. And maybe just pleasing your god once a day is might be all you need, or maybe even less. We're going to play with that, and that's what we want to find out in the beta test is get as many of us, probably everybody in this chat right here, using it and saying like, oh, that's too fast or that's too slow. Cool.
cool. I have not been paying attention to the side chat. Could god stats impact cooldown? Hypothetically, yes, especially now that we have on-chain gods, which is another thing that I could talk about.
It'd be cool to explain that.
Sure. I'll even bring up. Okay, I take screen back. Sorry, y'all, for making everybody switch between these.
Jamie, I'm having a little bit of a hard time hearing you.
Oh, okay. I will speak up then. How about now?
Better. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you for chiming in. Oh my gauze. Input. I turn up my volume. Activate volume increase. Okay. I lost my ASCII gods already. Don't mind me just scrolling through Twitter. I can't find it. It's something close here. It's close to this one. But the
Oh,
basic idea is that our gods are the data is actually off chain. It's inside of like an IPFS file that's baked with all the stats. But if you are writing a smart contract, I don't know where this is.
it was
I swear
before
to
this.
God. I swear to God I posted it before this. Yeah.
Yeah.
ASCII on chain. No, chain. I got nothing. And then so this is actually kind of a fun potential opportunity for something. Here we go. For something that all right, so the fast version of it is that in order for a smart contract like our energy rewards contract in be able to look at your god number 586 or whatever and say, oh, you have today's power is Inferno, you have Inferno, you get plus 6%. In order to do that, the actual powers need to be on chain. So this is yet another piece of the scope creep, but I've created a contract which is the on-chain god, and we've put them on Polygon, and I'm essentially importing data from Ethereum mainnet and from sort of the IPFS storage into this contract. And so this will be it's not actually an NFT on its own, but it is it's like an extension contract, if you could think of it like that. And it basically just says like, okay, God 4569, these are the following powers, these are the following attributes. And so other smart contracts on Polygon are able to reference that data. So what's cool about this is that we could start making on-chain art with that, and we could mint other NFTs with it essentially. And so this is this mock-up that Snuts did of sort of like using the power symbols as like a visualization of a god, sort of like this kind of ASCII star field. The other one that I made was god loot gods. So it just itemizes the things you have inside of your god. I already see some typos in this actually now that I'm looking at it more closely. But my god has no Oculus, but it does actually have an Oculus. This is a bug, but you can kind of see that it's just enumerating all this stats in a la loot basically. But um, I'm excited about that because it'd be kind of fun to make like some derivative NFTs that use the on-chain data to render them. If that makes sense. But the reason that the on-chain gods actually exist is to expose the trait and power data to other smart contracts. That's the kind of the core reason for it. And one other thing I could show related to that. Yeah, so that's one other idea is actually just like we could allow basically god holders to mint these other things as well. Like I know people have done that before. Like if anybody here is like a loot holder or sort of holds one of these popular NFTs that folks use as kind of like base tier. It's like if you hold A, you can mint this other version of it. So we could do something like that. And if we did do that, I instead of it being a free mint, I'd want it to be like you have to pay using energy. And I'll show two other things really quickly. Yeah, two other energy sync ideas. This one's from Dubpace almost certainly, which is just the titles idea. So you could basically use energy just like buy a title. And I'll probably do a very fast pass of this that just uses that you'd have to actually do it the transaction yourself using Etherscan, using Polygon Scan. And so you just like in the same way that lo-fi smart contract development, you just kind of go to the contract and you punch in your ID and you pay with the energy and you can add some titles. Similarly is this idea that we've had around the homepage ad that I like a lot. And Dubface did this awesome mock-up that I actually love where so you could buy the homepage slot for your god, and the add-on that Dubpace added is so smart is that all 6 of these could be slots, and it's basically like it bumps from one, like if you get bumped off of the first slot, you go to the second slot, and so on and so forth. And then the other piece of it is it has sort of like a almost like a Dutch auction style mechanic where the price of it depends on how long the previous ad has been up. So you could replace the current ad, but you need to pay more than they paid. But then over time, that price declines, and so you can kind of outbid them and take the top spot. But I love this idea. I also love the idea of like blockchain ads. I find it hilariously incongruent, and I love it. And then the last one, this one's all text. I'm really sorry, but I haven't made a visual for it. But I really want to integrate some of the spell casting and sort of cult war stuff that we have been talking about into Discord itself. And so you can see this in I will post the link in the chat, but the idea is that
I'll link it.
oh, thank you. The idea is that you can let's say you go to like a smart contract. Let's say like V1 no UI. It's just a smart contract that a bot that I can also create like a Discord bot that's like an administrator that you can cast spells against the other cults using energy. So in the same way that with the homepage ad, you would use your energy and you'd spend your energy to do this ad. You could also spend your energy, for instance, to post messages in the other cults' channels, to change the names of their channels, to change the topic of the channel. Or my favorite is this one mute channel, where you just straight up like can mute their channel and they can't talk anymore. Or this last one, buy and add everyone, 1 million energy. All the other ones are like 50 energy or 10 energy, but I was like, hey, gotta aim high. So I'll keep playing with this idea, but I really like this one just because I'd love to lean into like the cult war concepts, and Discord is sort of like I think Discord is actually a really powerful interface for communities in general, but also for sort of like games too, like this, and sort of like social games. So if anybody has any ideas for this one, keep me posted. But it's a little bit complicated to get to get like contracts talking to Discord in a way, but I have an idea for like a really simple version of it at first.
It'd be awesome to publish something that any community could use too.
Yeah, I mean that's what I'm wondering too. Like a lot of this work, like we could make. I mean, I don't know how we can translate it to other projects exactly, but at the very least, we could potentially open source some of the stuff. But I would love to figure out ways, basically, to like, rope those communities into using our energy token and other things that help sort of sell the gods and build god value. So definitely open ideas. I'm sort of defaulting to not sharing the code just yet in case this does become some kind of like amazing proprietary moat, but my default would just be to open source it all.
Yeah, I feel similarly.
I think that's it. I didn't write any notes. Homepage ad. Follow me on Twitter. This is actually my pipe dream for the ASCII gods. I have a lot of learning to do about how to do on-chain pixel art, but um, I would love to like make lo-fi versions of all the parts and do like a noun style render for every god that's like it's like attempts to do like lo-fi versions of all the parts, but I think it's going to be a big project.
Oh, I love that.
This was so good, and then we could use them in other games. We could use them in Legend Maps, we can use them in Loot, we can use them all over the place.
I really want
Yeah, just have to
pixel
redesign all the assets. No big deal.
Just redesign all the assets, no big deal. It only took us like 6 months to do them in the first place, right?
Yeah, and then we also want to make them all 3D too, so that'll be a small project.
And 3D, yeah. So it'll just take like another like 3 to 6 months, right? It's easy.
Yeah.
So you're not doing anything, right?
3 gods, 3D gods.
3D gods. Okay. I feel like we've taken a long time showing off stuff. Should we go to questions?
Yep, 10 minutes for questions. Feel free to click in with audio or just ask in side chat.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Dub. I was curious about the how long is the neglect period before your Gawdtchi dies? Is this a daily thing or every 2 days?
Great question. As always, I think we were defaulting to like 1 day-ish. So that it was kind of like a daily ritual. I could be talked into doing 2 days. I could be talked into doing less. Honestly, that's part of why I've gotten really infatuated with this community governance of game variables idea, because then we could all kind of decide together that it's like too stressful and we want to slow it down. But I'm totally open to suggestions.
I like the daily a lot, but then as soon as we get into daily, then I start thinking about the streaks thing again. And then if we got
Yes.
streaks, then I want to like think about even streak leaderboards. There's all sorts of stuff that ties into it. So I was just curious about when does it die?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Good question. Oh, man, I love the streaks idea. Especially I've been keeping a diary for several years and I'm on fire. So streaking.
Everyone loves the streak.
It's nuts. Not that kind of streaking, Snuts. Not that
Streaking
kind.
right now.
John Charles. So we have put all of this stuff onto Polygon, which is a layer 2 blockchain that is separate from the Ethereum mainnet. So everything is extremely low cost, and with this transaction forwarder model that the Gawdtchi built for us for the Gawdtchi game, that you actually don't have to pay anything at all. Basically, like you just sign a transaction in MetaMask, like sort of similar to those please log in, please sign this transaction to log in kind of messages, and then that forwards the transaction request to a little contract that we have called a trusted forwarder, which then pays for the transaction on Polygon. But a transaction on Polygon, it costs like less than 1 cent to do a transaction, so it should be pretty easy. And all of this is motivated by our desire to like make this actually fun to some extent. Like, I mean, there's a lot of blockchain games that I play that I would describe as like not actually fun at all. Like, it's only fun because there's money at risk, generally, which is fun in its own way. But we're working really hard to try to make the games feel a little more balanced, to feel like low stakes, to feel accessible, and then um, when we've kind of gotten through that, and I think we're really close to having stuff that we can start actually really sharing with y'all once we wire these pieces together and sort of clean up some of the UI. And then honestly, I would love to talk about where and how we increase the stakes, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like,
I just wanted to like pile on with yeah, it's on Polygon, and it will like all the transactions that happen with, you know, dating your god will be prepaid by us. It's not expensive, so it's no big deal. But those transactions will simply be all on our side, correct?
that's right. It causes a funny little UX quirk where because you are not the one submitting the transaction, it doesn't show up in your like MetaMask list of transactions, but I promise you it's a real transaction. And GPU showed those toast notifications as like little growl notifications earlier that links to the relevant Polygon scan transaction. And you'll be able to look at it and you can see that even though it's being submitted by the forwarder, that inside of it is a reference to your original wallet address. Blockchains. Oh, no problem. We do this more often if we could. I mean, honestly, it's one of those things where it's like time spent, you know, balancing the amount of time that we're spending on calls and promoting things with, you know, trying to like actually make the magic happen.
Yeah. And speaking of promoting, um, once these two portions are wired together and energy production is happening, I think it'd be great to work with some of our more well-known Twitter and God holders to promote this next step. I think I've been personally like it's usually me on Twitter making the jokes, but uh, I've been like a little bit calmer on it just because I feel like we're ramping up. With one, I'm working a lot on UI, but we'll be ramping up to some bigger marketing pushes with the release of this that I feel like is as significant as the initial launch. So just want to be clear about like uh, that we're going to be pushing a little bit harder on marketing, but also would love help and advice and tips. So if you have any input, I'm here. Okay, we're 6 minutes in. I mean, till the end. Anybody else have any questions?
Let me jump in. I'm curious about. I looked at the cult page just very quickly earlier when it was shown, and I saw that each cult had an allocation of energy displayed for it. And I was wondering, especially in relation to the Guard the Planet game, which by the way looks awesome. Um, is there a difference between like a cult bank? Is there a cult bank versus like individual wallets, or is the cult all of our wallets combined? You know.
I've been thinking about that a lot too, and I mean I like both ideas. That mock-up would probably rely on just sort of like pulling, you know, total energy earned by members of that cult as a
That was my
basic version of
assumption.
it. Yeah, like that was I think it's kind of like an easy default. But for instance, the Truel game does rely on cult wallets, and even like the concept of like a cult multi-sig, let's say. And so we could do something like that. And I was thinking about that the other day of how we could do like, to your point, like a cult bank. And I don't know, for me personally, I actually get way more motivated by like team games than solo games, like just across the board, really. And like I'm a lot more enthused about, shilling for Tureen than I am for shilling for myself, so to speak. And so I am really into this idea of like cult bank, and I don't have any great ideas about how to like do that without it just being. I mean, basically, we could just set up like a Gnosis multisig for each cult, and then be like first 5 people, or maybe the 5 largest gods holders in each cult or whatever, get to be the multisig for it. But um, we could definitely do something like that. And I personally love the idea of like like working to earn energy for my gods in order to like funnel it straight into my cult, and then that way my cult can use it later with various pyramid schemes that we're setting up.
Cool. Yeah, I was just curious because personally, for me, over Truel, Guard the Planet is like super amazing and promising. Like that looks awesome. But there is sort of that question of like, what is the incentive for me to mobilize and work with my cult teammates to try to do this stuff and disrupt other cults? And it's tough. The bank thing I think sounds really tricky and difficult. If there's somehow that we could emulate that feeling
Mm-hmm.
of that teamwork
Mm-hmm.
feeling of like we're all in this together, but we each have control of our own wallets and we get like proportional shares of our cult winnings when we win this game or
Mm-hmm.
when we defend our planet.
Yeah, that's kind of the default with Truel too, is that the rewards go to
Hot.
the cult wins, but then the rewards would go essentially pro rata to the cult members who had contributed to that round. But yeah, that's good to know. And then yeah, keep us honest with this stuff as far as like we're moving forward, where it's like, oh, this feels a little too individualistic, or this feels like a little too culty. Nobody ever said that.
No one said that to us yet.
Yeah. Now I really think like that to me feels like a real motivator as far as like, dunking on other cults. I love it.
Yeah. I feel like the Truel and the Planet Guard game, they all require a pot of some sort, something to win.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just like we introduce like a new like a god token, what that is actually, backed by some sort of money, or or it's just actual Ethereum or NFTs. I got a bunch of NFTs we could resell, or put in there, and maybe we have a like a communal god wallet that like acquires NFTs that go back into the game to make sure like people are excited.
Yeah, I definitely want to write that idea down. I really like the idea of like having this pool of sacrificed NFTs that we use as, fodder for the for the contest or whatever. That'd be super fun. I'd be happy to put a couple of things in there.
Yeah, me
Yeah, and
too.
I wonder how we could do it too, where like maybe like that floor price idea is really fun, where it's maybe like how you could do it so that it's like you incentivize contributing something legitimately valuable.
That's interesting.
My very last comment was just going to be, I know I missed a big portion of the talk related to the energy sinks, but something that was in my mind is I've seen other ecosystems that are building out their own token and putting in these sinks. They're all building a store.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sure you guys have already thought about that.
Oh, we didn't show it off, but what would you expect to be in the store?
Just
The first.
whatever sinks. I mean, there needs to be a go-to spot where when someone is like, "Hey, what the hell do I do with energy? Why does this have value?" You go check out the store, and they click on it.
Yeah, and then so are they selling like? I mean, I've talked about this with Snuts. We could just straight up sell gods. We could sell more gods for energy. I'm really into that because, we want to mint more of them. Um, we could also make new stuff. Like we could make like these ASCII gods. We could make whatever. We could make like other NFTs you could buy. Like, and then we could also make it so you can like buy our merch. Like we have like real merch, and we're happy to like front the cash to make this happen. But I'm curious, like if you've seen anything where you're like, oh, they're selling kind of like existing stuff versus selling like new stuff, or what kind of feels motivating.
All of that is amazing. I love all of that. Some of the stuff that I've seen with other projects, one example is something that's upcoming with this project called Wanderers. And they have something called Planet Pass, which is like just sort of like a passport of where you've been on chain, like where you've visited. But you can upgrade your Planet Pass. It's purely cosmetic, but you can upgrade the way that it looks, get different borders for it. And it's just something to think about. We could even have borders that go around our border radius gods in when we view them.
I love that idea. What? Yeah, that was another idea that we talked about before. Was like you can pay to upgrade the levels of your god, even though the levels don't do anything yet, or maybe ever. But like, I'll totally, you know, max level my god, whatever that means.
Completely agreed. And it doesn't even need to be anything that you build. It's possible somebody else is going to build something that uses the levels.
Right, exactly. And that's kind of our hope. And that's why we'll also, whatever we do with this stuff, kind of like on various different chains, I plan on importing that data into the on-chain gods so that there is kind of this like canonical source of on-chain data available for anybody who did want to build other games. And it would only be on Polygon is kind of a limitation. But I've been thinking about like we could even actually do something where we basically mirror it into a bunch of different EVM compatible chains. So you could, for instance, build a game on Avalanche or on Arbitrum or Optimism or whatever you're building.
You made me think of one last thing to mention, which is if we're doing staking custodial in ETH, does that mean that when we stake our god, it goes out of our wallet into a contract?
That's I'm still debating. I'm defaulting to not doing that to keep it low stakes to start. That is a potential mechanic. I am interested in that from an economic policy perspective, but um, it's enough of a ask that I think we'll kind of run this beta test just operating under the assumption that it's just strictly L2. Yeah, there's this lockup, but it's not really like a lockup. But I do think that if I was going to pick one thing to increase the stakes of the games, it would be custodial L1 staking for the gods in order to be able to participate in this energy token production economy.
Yes. I for one think it's worth going the layer one route, even though I would have to stake like 20 plus gods. It's like terrifying for gas fees. But something to think about if we do go that way. Another thing that I saw another project doing was since you lose the NFT from your wallet, you still kind of want to show it off. So they basically do like a swap, an instant swap where you get a
Interesting.
Polygon copy of the NFT that you'll get back, or you send that back when you get the real one back, and vice versa.
We could 100% do that. I mean, we already have the on-chain gods, so that'd be no problem at all. And it could be both the high-res one, it could be something else. But yeah, you're basically, it's basically like you stake the god and then you get back a staked god, if that makes sense.
Yep. Love it.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'm like, you know, we get a lot of questions about gas fees, and I think they're very understandable. So I'm kind of like, and especially because we're sort of at like, you know, the community is relatively small. I would prefer to be gentle at the beginning, but it would be, I, you know, in the interest of building shareholder value, I do think it is very interesting to actually lock up the gods because for everybody else on the call, what that would enable is that you would not be able to set if you had staked your god, you would not be able to sell it until you had unstaked. And if there is, for instance, like let's say the lockup is a week, the lockup could be a month, the lockup could be 3 months, and so it locks up a lot of the supply, which just means that there are fewer gods available for sale. And it's more of a commitment. Like if you're getting these energy tokens, and right now all the ideas that we've thrown out are pretty like low value from like a literal financial perspective. Um, I think that you know those are the kinds of mechanics that really start to increase value overall, if that makes sense. We're
Awesome.
over we're over time, yeah. So if there's no other questions, I think we'll hop off and we'll see y'all again in 2 weeks. And I'm sure we'll have some updates for you at the beginning of next week too. And God willing, some beta testing and banging on some buttons and reporting bugs, of which there will be certainly no bugs at all. But if there are bugs, please report them to me.
Yeah, we know the guy.
I know this guy. I got a guy.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Thank you, Casey. Thank you, everyone, for coming.
Thank you, Snuts. Yes, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dubpace, for all the great ideas. Thank you, Chris and Matt and John and Don and everybody else for joining in. This is a lot of fun.
Thanks, y'all. Have a nice weekend.
Yeah.
Have a
you
nice
too.
weekend, everybody.
Dark partings.
Dark
Dark
partings.
partings.
Rest in
Thanks,
peace.
everybody.
Thanks.
Have a
Bye.
lot
Let's
of
go,
dark
Streak.
partings.